Hello, everyone. On tonight's episode of Alternate Media, we will be having a public giveaway. It's going to be a fantastic party. I will try and contain myself. Everybody knows that I'm given to emotional outbursts and charisma. I will try and tone that down so as to not steal the life of the party. We'll also have a meme of the week, as per the usual. And with that said, let me bring on my colleague, Seamus.
Oh, there we go.
Nope, don't like that.
Don't like that at all. How are you tonight?
I am good. For those of you who don't get the joke, I decided for Purim this year that I was going to be Matt Walsh.
And I'm a student at Hogwarts. I don't have a particularity. It can't be Luna Lovegood. I mean, it's 2023. I guess I could.
I've been looking forward to tonight. Tonight is probably one of my favorite things that we do, and we just started it last year, but like I love it. So,
yeah, we have got quite a night. We've got a lot of giveaways to get through, specifically 11. And since we're on the topic of giveaways, it's actually we need to explain how this is going to work for the rest of the night. So we are actually going to be relying on you, the audience, in order to do this giveaway. So we are not going to give a book away until we've got a good question worthy enough to give said book away. So be active in the comment section. Be here, be live. If you're not live, watch the comment section because there's going to be a bunch of questions, hopefully anyway. And when we find a good question, we'll click on it. We will answer said question. And at the end of answering the question, we will then make a random drawing for the giveaway. And we won't move on to the next book until we've got a question to answer. And so this way, we get to interact with you, the crowd, live. This is kind of like what we do on Discord in the after part as
right.
A little bit, but without the giving away portion. But yeah, so that's how this is going to work. So we need for you as a crowd collectively to come up with 11 good questions. Because we're not going to answer like dumb questions. Well, there's, I guess, no such thing as a dumb question. Simple questions or kind of just throwaway questions. We're not going to necessarily answer. Like if someone says, "Why does Brad look like a lumberjack?" That is not going to be a valid question.
Somebody doesn't listen or watch Matt Walsh.
So we have so that's the plan for tonight. And we have one fairly big announcement, actually. And that is the first little thing that I really wanted to put up here. So I have it here on the banners. Before we even move forward the rest of the show, ladies and gentlemen, it's official. We are officially a nonprofit organization. The paperwork is finally done. Everything is in place. We are a 501c3 organization. Or is it 501c3?
501c3.
I'm just looking at the paperwork and I feel blind from all the reading. And I can't remember if it's C3 for whatever. We are a 501 nonprofit organization. It's official. So that means as of this year, actually, we were technically official by documentation at the beginning of this year. So any and all donations sent to Alternate Media via the Patreon or the website, update, we prefer the website, but any and all donations given to Alternate Media is a tax deductible donation. And so that is really, really a big step for us as a company, as an organization. I'm like still.
Yeah, it doesn't seem real.
It really, yeah, it doesn't. It's especially when I went to the bank to open up a small business account and have everything, all the ducks in a row. It was like I'm sitting down before a bank executive who's helping me put this whole thing together, and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening right now. So
SPG for life.
SPG for life. Yeah. So and boy, so first of all, the thing about becoming a nonprofit organization, it was actually incredibly expensive. So the very next thing that we absolutely have to recognize is all of our supporters. Yes. All of you guys here are literally the reason. Every single supporter, whether you're from $1 or you're on the top tier list like you see here, every single donation helped contribute to us being able to even afford to pay for all of the legal work to be done to actually have this as a nonprofit organization. It is incredibly expensive to start a nonprofit. There's a lot of things that at a certain point you just need to have a lawyer on call so that you don't screw anything up. And because it's one of those, like, are you just trying to start a business and do tax evasion, or are you legitimately opening a nonprofit? So there's actually a lot of scrutiny that goes into nonprofit organizations. And so now, but yeah, so all that to say, a massive thank you to everyone who helped contribute. You guys are the OGs. We've just started this year. So everyone on this list and everyone on the Patreon list currently and on the website are the OG supporters who were giving even when it wasn't a tax write-off to help us start this. And so to you, a massive thank you. And again, as we get into this video, you guys are the only reason we can afford to give away upwards of $1,000 worth of books like we're going to do tonight. So without further ado, we can get to all, all the other announcements at the end. Who knows how long this episode will be? It might be a little longer than normal, but we'll do our best to keep it under an hour as per usual. But yes, definitely ask us questions in the chat. We will be starring, favoriting, and saving questions for the whole night for the book giveaway. And please don't forget, even if you're not supporting us monetarily, whether it be $1 or $25, it doesn't matter. The easiest and best way to support us is to, of course, bless the subscribe button, believe in the like button, and press it. That's honestly the best way to help support the ministry, and it's totally free. And then, of course, if you are so inclined and feel so led, your generous donations are greatly appreciated. Not just by us here at Alternate Media, but also by everyone who's going to receive free merchandise and free books and educations and stuff like that through, we're being a conduit for your donation for this throughput. And so, all right, I think that's it for the updates. Oh, and how we're doing the drawing real quick, just so everyone knows what's going on. I've made a spreadsheet of every supporter who is currently up to date in their support, be it $1, be it $25, doesn't matter. Even if you did an annual donation, if your annual donation has not expired, as in it's not been a year, that you're on this list. So any and all supporters for the last year have been logged onto a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet has a number next to every name and email address. And I will be rolling a dice, an online custom-made dice with the exact number of sides as we have people, right? So it's obviously not a dice that exists in real life, but it's a digital dice. We will roll said dice. I have randomized the spreadsheet, completely shuffled it so that it's completely random. And whatever the dice lands on, whatever number that is, that's the winner of the book giveaway. And that also means that even if you've recently won a book in the monthly book giveaway, you are still viable to win a book tonight. It's completely random and also all inclusive to anyone who is currently supporting. So, all right. First question, Brad, what is a woman?
So I'm very glad this question has been asked. It's as we all know in society, this is a very difficult question to answer today. I've been told by many experts that a woman is somebody who identifies as a woman. Of course, we can't actually explain what it is that they're identifying as they're using the word woman within the definition. So.
You're going to get a lot of questions. In fact, I'm going to make you answer most of the questions tonight with the voice.
Okay. So I have to stay in character for most of the night? Oh, man.
Tradition for tonight. What do you got?
Oh, I am polishing off a box. This is the Nighthawk Black Dark Malbec from Argentina.
Wine. All right. Funny enough, you're dressed as a man, but you're drinking women's drink. I am dressed as a character from a controversial author right now, and I'm drinking the manliest thing that I've ever bought, and it's the Nick Offerman edition. That's right, Nick Offerman Lagavulin 11-year with the charred oak cask. And I wish it would. You can kind of see there's Nick Offerman's face, the legend that he is.
Good old Ron Swanson.
And I haven't even opened it yet. It's brand new. So, all right, let's scour the comments.
Hold on. I have to recognize this joke because it's great. How do you drown a hipster?
In the mainstream. All right. Smoky yet satisfying. I actually hate smoky scotches, but this is one of my absolute favorite scotches of all time. It's just so, like, it's smoky, but it doesn't taste like a campfire. It doesn't taste like an ashtray. It tastes
right. It's not like overbearing peat.
Yeah, it's tasteful peat.
Right.
And it just smells fantastic too. It smells like pipe smoke, like Cavendish.
Ooh.
Oh man, that is just fantastic. Oh, it's been a while since I had this. I've had this whiskey. All right. Okay. If Brad has to stay in character, then as a producer, I'm going to always give Gryffindor points every time your house answers something correct. And somehow you'll lose points.
All right. So there's a game within a game going now.
Yes. We are Inception gaming. All right, cool. So, let's see. So do we have any questions as of yet? I think I saw one. I'm going to do my best to try and monitor the chat over here. I don't believe in the like button, but I'll press it just in case it saves me from hell. I like it.
No. You don't make jokes. We make the jokes here. And for that comment, you are banned from the show. Sorry.
Look, your works, i.e. liking the like button, without faith, i.e. believing in the subscribe button, is dead. All right, and let's see. Okay, Seamus, you're answering the question before you owe us a giveaway. I've seen a bunch of Ravenclaw support up in here. Loving it.
I know, right? It's a good costume, well put together. I like.
All right. Boxes. Yeah, see, this is what we mean. Boxes of briefs. We're not answering these kinds of... I mean, we can, but they won't be worthy of a book giveaway. And I should, real quick, let me pull up the first giveaway.
What it is they're testing me on exactly how much Matt Walsh I am because they believe the costume. So they want to know if I'm an imposter. That's what it is.
Not by likes alone. See, it was his likes and his subs which made him righteous. I love it. So the first prize for tonight is the Stone Edition Chumash, a full-sized one. And so we're just waiting on a question so we can give this amazing book away?
I'll answer this one, but I don't know if this will count as the question. But no, I am neither. I am dressed as Matt Walsh. So if you've ever seen his documentary "What Is a Woman," or ever seen any of his podcast videos or anything like that, he's a big fan of plaid, and we have a similar beard and hairstyle. So I figured if I just got the glasses and put the costume together, then maybe I would look like Matt Walsh. And as it turns out, I've got that dead stare down.
Let's see. New comments. Matt Walsh is a hipster vlogger. How dare you, Austin?
Yeah, I don't know if he'd appreciate that.
What was Yeshua writing in the sand when they brought the woman caught in adultery before him?
Oh.
So this is a dumb, not dumb question. And the reason is, well, one, we don't know, but two, this actually opens up answering a different aspect of this question.
Right.
You know where I'm going with this, because this is from John 8.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first. And if this gives an adequate answer, I'll count it for the giveaway.
No. You so for this one, you go where you're going, because I've got like two other ideas off the top of my head.
Okay.
Probably of explanations that I've heard for that.
Well, so we're probably going in the same direction. But one, so what was he writing in the sand? The first and simplest answer to this question is nobody knows. Another answer to this question is nobody cares. Or rather, who cares? But what's interesting is this passage is a late medieval period addition to the text of the Gospel of John. So it's specifically from John chapter 8. And the entire story with the woman caught in adultery is interesting in that it shows two things. There's, from my opinion and perspective, there seems to have been some semblance of retaining an oral tradition about Yeshua that gets eventually recorded in John 8 in the later medieval texts. Because of the nature of the content, there seems to be some semblance of oral tradition that's being retained. And I'll get into why later. But also at the same time, it also shows that whoever was retaining this particular aspect of the oral tradition, in an attempt to explain where he got the tradition from, he shows his ignorance in basic Jewish law. And so this likely did not happen exactly this way. It's more than likely a sort of cherry tree story, like George Washington and a cherry tree. It portrays something about him that was probably true, and even an event that likely had something similar to do with it, but the event itself probably did not happen exactly as it's shown, because it doesn't make historical sense if it did happen. So, but his end lesson, the whole he who casts the first, or who has never sinned casts the first stone, or he who is without sin casts the first stone, is a very, very stereotyped Pharisaic way of dismissing witnesses in a court of law. And so that's where I say there's a semblance of retaining real oral tradition about Yeshua, whereas the story itself also is indicative of somebody who doesn't understand the legal system in Judea. That's not how it worked. You wouldn't just bring a woman before some random dude accused of adultery without her husband. There's no Sanhedrin involved. It's supposed to be done in a controlled court system, and it's not being done in this way at all. And so it likely didn't happen this way at all. But that's kind of where I don't want to spend too much time on that. So I'm going to let you kind of pick up from there.
Well, the two that I'm most familiar with as just theories, because again, there's absolutely no way to know with any certainty what he wrote. But some of the prevailing theories are that he wrote down either some of or all of the Ten Commandments. or that he wrote down specifically the commandment against committing adultery. And another is that because the scenario has to be taken into account where these men found her. She was caught in the act of adultery. That's the claim. And so there is speculation that, well, some of these men clearly knew where to find her. Adultery is not something that you just do out in the open, especially not in this society. So there's a prevailing theory that perhaps she had customers, and that some of these men standing accusing her for the sake of trapping Yeshua were such customers themselves, and that Yeshua was writing down the names of who in the crowd.
Austin is just in the comment section, just passing jokes.
Yep. But yeah, those are two of them that I've heard that are familiar to me. As far as my own thoughts of what he wrote, I honestly, this is not even something I even presume to speculate on, because again, there's just not enough evidence in the text to tell us what he wrote.
I think personally, the detail of him writing is again some sort of bleed over from an oral tradition,
right?
And they just, like, the details kind of got muddied over time until it finally does get written down. But it's so far removed from the source material that it's really hard to pin down what it was like in its original form. But yeah, the writing, could easily just have been originally just in a certain situation in which he was kind of taking time to think. Or it might have been, it might have had something to do with a connection with the circle drawer.
Or here's another one that I just thought about is what if he inscribed the divine name there, right? Because at this point it's like, all right, are you really going to lie while standing on ground where the divine name has been inscribed?
I don't know. I wonder. I feel like you're not allowed to do that because you're not allowed to erase the divine name.
Probably not.
Yeah. I don't. Interesting. I don't know. But I think it's good enough for the first prize giveaway, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's give it away.
So, prize number 1, Stone Edition Chumash. I'm going to go to the roller now. And drum roll, please. First winner is, lucky number 13, which is David Salvador.
Yay!
Rec Life. He's in the Discord as Rec Life. At least that's what my stuff here says. So David Salvador, congratulations. And I'm writing down all the winners just in case for after the show.
Man, the chat is like popping with some good questions, like really good ones.
David Salvador, you are the winner of prize number 1. Congratulations to you. He's probably not watching, and if he is, congratulations. If not, and he's watching later, congratulations. If he doesn't watch at all, we'll send him an email anyway.
It's a wonderful resource to have. I love mine. Mine has had a lot of use.
Yeah, we use the Chumash in shul every day. It's like the baseline thing. So that's prize number 1. Prize number 2 is Every Man's Talmud. This is a great book by Avram Cohen, and it is a cheap way of having all the essential Talmudic stuff that you want without buying the entire 73-volume set. This is a fantastic resource. I cannot recommend this resource enough. It's not a long book. It's like 400 pages, I think, maybe a little over. It's definitely less than 500 pages, but it is very dense with a ton of information, and it's very systematic too. So the real Talmud is not very systematic at all, and so it's really hard to find an entire discussion about a single topic anywhere in the Talmud, because it kind of bounces around depending on what the real problem that they're eventually trying to get to is. Like the story of of Rabbi Hillel and Shammai with the Gentile, who says, "Teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot." That's in Tractate Shabbat. And they're talking about laws that are pertaining to the Sabbath. And eventually, one thing leads to another, where this story comes up as a proof text in order to justify a certain aspect of Sabbath observance. And somehow that story relates to a justification. And so there are a lot of things in the Talmud. It's not very organized. It's very conversational. And so, yeah. So anyway, Every Man's Talmud, fantastic resource. What's going to be our question for this one? Brad, I'm going to let you choose this next question.
Oh, boy.
I've starred a few of them. I'm sure you've seen that.
Say what?
I put a star on a few good ones that I saw. So if you check out the starred section, you can kind of...
Yeah. Let's see. Actually, hang on. I saw one that I thought was going to be a pretty good one. And, okay. So, I've heard people use 1 Corinthians 15:56. The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law, as the verse people use to say the law or Torah is evil and should not be observed. So this is just an illogical application of this verse. And this is very easy to combat by applying an equal sense of logic in a capacity that people are able to comprehend in the modern age. Okay. That's like saying that to say that the power of sin is the law is the same as saying the power of murder is life, right? Because if people aren't alive, then they can't be killed, right? So if there's no law, you can't transgress a law. If there's no law, then there's no possible way to break the law, right? That's what sin is. Sin is the transgression of the law. So the law gives sin power by existing, which means that sin is allowed to exist as a byproduct of the fact that the law exists. That to extrapolate from that the law is a bad thing is absolutely asinine. To extrapolate in any capacity that the defining factor that allows something to find definition, to find its own reality, that thing itself is then bad or negated by that fact, is just utterly illogical in every capacity. It's like saying that light is bad because light allows darkness to be defined. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's not a tough one, I guess. It's all about the perspective in which you read it from. If you're coming to the text with an anti-Torah perspective already, then you're going to read that as a bad thing. But if you're coming to the text from a pro-Torah perspective, then you're reading that for the reality that it is. That sin, sin is defined by the Torah, so its power comes from the law, and the problem is the punishment or the eventual reality of sin is death, which means really that verse just illustrates that everybody is bound by the law, whether they like it or not. If everyone is a sinner, no one is righteous, not even one. Well, then, you can only justify that if the law still has power over a person in their lifetime. And if sin still holds over a person as something that is sinful and to be avoided, that means the law means it is still very much valid and in effect. So if anything, when you read that passage from a pro-Torah perspective, it's just reality, and it doesn't help the anti-Torah perspective at all. In fact, it
right.
sort of shoots it.
Right. That's like saying that the speed limit gives traffic violations power, so the speed limit is bad.
So, Every Man's Talmud, let's see here. Yes. I'm just making sure I got everything right. All right. So, drum roll and. Ooh.
So you're the drummer, not me. So
yeah, I'm drumming. I got it. All right. And the winner of the Everyman's Talmud goes to Judith Gonzalez. Judith Gonzalez, congratulations. This one is also, you are also in the Discord as Judith20. So, Judith Gonzalez, congratulations. And if you're watching, congrats. If you're not watching, congrats anyway. I'm sure you'll watch later. All right. And yeah, we have got quite a number of
several good questions here.
Yeah, it's starting to kick
pile
in
up on us. You guys are doing good.
Prize number 3, rethinking the 5 soli. This is another
this is a good book.
It's a short book, but man, is it just gold. For those who don't know, the 5 soli are the 5 basic foundational principles of the Protestant Reformation, or Protestantism, really in general. And the book really focuses on sola scriptura. It spends about half of the entire book really focusing on sola scriptura. But the other 5 soli really need to reapproach because they were all really just a knee-jerk reaction to Catholicism at the time. So this is like, they're called soli because, like sola scriptura, sola fide, sola gloria, all the, scripture alone, faith alone, grace alone, Christ alone, the 5 solis. And so it's good. It's a very, very, very good book. Highly recommend it. What is going to be our question for this book?
Ooh, this one here. If Yeshua's ministry and life was his sacrifice, what does his death accomplish, if anything? So,
I just wanted to put that up there. I love that every man's talent went to a woman. Where is it? You start it.
There you go.
There you go. Stop clicking it.
You stop.
Stop it. You're the worst.
Okay. So there's a few answers that I think apply to this one, and one of them being that it completes it, right? And I'm glad you asked this question, because it actually points out something specific that many in the Christian church, I guess, forget. I'm not going to say they ignore it, or that I think in many ways they're just unaware of it, because such a big deal is made about his death that we completely forget about the fact that he lived a life. And more than that, we're actually forgetting about the original punishment that was given to Adam, right? Because that's the idea. The idea is that he took on the punishment that was due Adam. Mm-hmm. This is why Paul refers to him as the last Adam, right? That's the whole point here, and the whole point to Yeshua in general. So we have to go back to the circumstances of Adam in order to properly understand within its context what the life and death of Yeshua all means. And a lot of people forget that, yes, Adam was promised that in the day that he ate of the fruit that he would die. And this is rationalized in a number of different ways as to why he didn't die immediately. And then there's the spiritual death of separation from God aspect that people explain. None of these are really wrong, but I think that people forget that as part of this punishment is life on this earth as it currently exists was part of that punishment. So as much as, the death, burial, and resurrection is a huge aspect of his purpose and mission, his life, I would say, is actually an equally large part of it, because that's fulfilling the punishment that was given to Adam. if Adam had simply been killed, right, immediately, boom, like that's a done deal. That's easy at this point. But having to endure a life on this earth, that is part of the punishment. And that's a big part of the punishment that Yeshua bore.
I'm going to disagree with you, but not. So you're focusing on the life, which is great. I totally agree with that. The part I disagree with you is the equal, we say. His death is a big part. I think we should treat his death as there's the element of the sacrificial metaphor that's being incorporated by the death, but more than anything else, Christians tend to focus on just the death part as being like an atonement for sins, as a sort of PSA, right? Penal substitutionary atonement.
Right.
And it's a very, very Christian way of looking at the death. The gospel writers, and Paul especially, when they talked about his death, they talked about it as a metaphor to his sacrifice, not as a literal one-to-one sacrifice, but as a sort of symbolic sacrifice in order to lead to the resurrection. The resurrection is the ultimate proof of everything for Jews of his day. It's the proof that the Pharisees are correct. It's the proof that there is a resurrection and a life to come. It's the proof that his entire ministry is entirely true and standing on firm ground. It's proof that there is a messianic age to come. It's
right.
The resurrection should be the focus. The death is a thing that happens to the suffering servant. We know that from the scriptures. Fine enough. But the resurrection is the big point that everybody focused on. And it's the resurrection that got all the disciples killed. Talking about his death didn't get them killed. It was talking about his resurrection. And so that's where I would shift the focus a little bit. Is his life and his resurrection are the two main components. The death is just sort of a fulfillment of a specific prophecy, give or take.
So I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree a little bit back.
Okay.
But not. And that is that, especially when we take into account the purpose of the office of the son of Joseph, right? Mashiach ben Yosef, is that his death would bring about mass repentance. That's one of the primary aspects of this office, is that his death would bring about mass repentance. Now, while the conventional understanding of that was that it would be mass repentance among Israel, the fact that Christianity took on themselves to focus so heavily on the death has resulted in what I would say is a mass repentance that has been ongoing through the centuries. And as a matter of fact, we here are part of that. And everybody here watching right now is a part of that mass repentance. It's still going on. Anybody who, as a result of being part of the Christian church and studying the scriptures, who found their way to Torah as a result of that, is part of this mass repentance that has happened as a result of Yeshua's death and Christianity's focus on that death.
Someone in the comments is talking about the fulfillment of the high priesthood as well. That's a heavenly high priesthood. It's a slightly different focus. The death is certainly a part of that. In the book of Hebrews is really where that focus kind of comes in. But it's really his righteous life is what earned him that position, and dying while also a completely innocent man is another part of what earns him in that position. It's a secondary proof to the whole thing. Not that I'm disagreeing with you in the comments, but I see you bringing it up, and I just thought it was worthy to mention.
Oh, hey, Biddy Buddha's here.
I saw that also.
What up, Biddy Buddha?
And she's I mean she's right. As atonement for sin doesn't make sense to be conducted by a secular government rather than being an atonement similar to Jephthah's daughter, or what Isaac would have been if fulfilled. I think I see what you're saying. We're essentially saying, I guess, the same thing. Penal substitutionary atonement is garbage and not good theology. Our boys down at the Church Split, Will Hess, has done a series on that. I actually highly recommend that you check out that series, because he
absolutely
very extensive. He goes through all of church history and just how garbage that that even like some of the patristic fathers hated that idea. Yes. So that was prize number for prize 3, right?
Yep, Rethinking the Five Soli.
Okay, so
spectacular book, actually. Biddy, just for the sake of being able to argue with Christians, this is a spectacular book just on that basis alone. Would highly recommend.
Yeah. Okay, so the winner of the 5 Soli, Rethinking It, is Cassie Body. Cassie Body, Cassyboddy. I don't know if that's your real name, but we will be sending you an email because I don't see you in the Discord. But congratulations to Cassie Body. In fact, I actually am wondering.
Yes, we are familiar with Kingdom in Context.
Okay.
I have yet to have him on. I should probably do that. I should probably do an interview with Kingdom in Context. Yes, it is a magic wand.
Well, technically Purim was yesterday, but we're doing a Purim holiday special, and the tradition in Purim is to dress up in costume, and I am a Ravenclaw. Yes, this is a wand, and I got it from Universal Studios in Japan, and it's the wand that chose me. Like, you know, where you go to the thing and they walk you through like that scene from Harry Potter. They choose one random kid out of the audience to do that scene with, and I was chosen, and this is the wand that chose me.
That's awesome.
So I think that the idea was to choose like an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, or whatever, but instead they got a 27-year-old. But I showed up like this, like I walked in there like this, so I think part of it was I was dressing the part, so they were like, "Oh,
mentally 8 years old."
Basically,
it worked for the theater.
Yeah. Precisely.
That's what it is.
The next giveaway is The Letter Writer by Tim Hegg, another fantastic book. It's basically a biography about Paul, and it's fantastic. Let's see. So, time to pick a question.
Oh boy, you pick this one.
Okay. Interestingly, there's a few good ones up here. Some we've already touched. I'm actually choosing this simple one, believe it or not.
Okay. Yeah, that so
and there's a reason I'm choosing this simple one, because this is also true of Paul.
Right. As it even though there isn't necessarily a reason that we can determine as to why. Now, in the case of Esther, this is what I would say. The king knew that she was a Jewess, but I don't know if society at large knew at that point.
It's also, I mean, believe it or not, it's a little immaterial. It just depends on your surroundings and who you're with. You know, for example, I tend to go by Shmuel in the synagogue setting, right? But nowhere else in the world do I get called Shmuel. I'm Seamus everywhere else. And it's because I live in a society where Hebrew is a very, you know, like nobody speaks Hebrew. And even Samuel, because like, that's not my actual name. My name is Seamus, but Shmuel is actually a very close to the name Seamus. And I also like the name. I like the name. It was the name of my late grandfather. And but yeah, so there's just an aspect of I live in the world, so I have a name that was, you know, kind of close to what my Hebrew name would otherwise be. Paul probably chose Paul because it's close enough to Shaul, Paulos, and he was named after the first king of Israel, Shaul. He was probably proud of that. But in the Greek world, which is, you know, he was largely a Hellenistic, or not Hellenistic. He was Hellenized in that he was Greek, not
He was a
Hellenistic.
Benjamite too,
Yeah,
just like King Shaul.
it's like King Shaul. That's why he was probably really proud of the name. But he chose Paulos because that's the language in his surroundings was Greek, and that was close enough to Shaul, Paulos, that that's what he went by in the public spheres. And so Esther probably being where she was located is likely that just like anyone else in our day and age too. You and I, in the synagogue I'm Shmuel, but in the real world I'm Seamus. It's really not like a big deal. In fact, I once heard a Jew say something like, when Christians accuse Jews of trying to get rid of Jesus by switching to CE instead of AD, and he's like, I find that ridiculous because we're not actually trying to get rid of Jesus. In fact, we're keeping him there by the fact that we're using your calendar still. It's still 70 AD CE, what have you. And so we're still very much recognizing the secular, what they consider the secular calendar, the otherworldly calendar, and not the Jewish calendar. They have no problem using the other calendar for anything else. It's just they don't feel like they find it necessary to continually praise somebody else's God every time they make a reference to said calendar. So they're like, so CE, but they're still recognizing that Jesus was, born right in around 1 CEAD, what have you. They don't care. They just don't want to be actively giving praise to what that would be considered idolatry to them. So it's like, yeah, we're not trying to get rid of it. We're keeping it. We're just trying to get rid of the aspect for us that would be idolatry, and that's it. But they otherwise don't care. And it's like the same with names. So, most Jews in the synagogue go by one name and in the real world by another name, and they don't care. It's just like, this is what it is. Most people in the grocery store can't say Yadid Yakovin. They can't say that. They just give me an easy name, John. Okay.
Let's see.
So that would be for the letter writer. Drum roll for the letter writer. What do we got? Oh, interesting. Okay, so I don't know this person's name because they did not write it down, and so all I was given to work off was their email address. And I did my best to reconstruct a kind of name from that email address. And so without giving away their email address, Ryan's Strength. Ryan's Strength. You are the winner of the letter writer. Now, whoever Ryan's, RINES, Ryan's Strength. Let me write this down real quick. I do know that this one is from the website. That she's not on the Patreon. She's on the actual website, alternatmedia.com. So that will probably be the best way to reach out for that one. But congratulations, Strength, Ryan, whatever, whoever you are, whatever your name is. I'll send you an email and we'll get shipping information from you, and we'll send you your winning book. So congratulations. I see you've starred a couple of questions while I was talking there.
Yeah, I figured there were a couple of these were pretty good.
Congrats, obscure email address. All right. Oh, that actually, funny enough, because Esther is easier to say and spelled than Hadassah, which is most likely spelled wrong. We actually have someone that we hang out with, a friend of my wife's. Her name is Heavy. But because it's spelled like Chevy, we just call her Jolene. And there's actually no English equivalent to heavy. Like we were like, we seriously were like racking our brains. And so eventually she was like, well, let's just choose a new name for me. And all of us were like, all right. So we started going through song names instead of real names, and we landed on Jolene.
Terrible.
Yeah, dudes, they're funny. All right. So the next book in the giveaway is Galatians, which is actually, I'm going to pull out my copy.
Yeah, not the book from the Bible.
This book by D. Thomas Lancaster, this is a fantastic starting point. So the book of Galatians is one of those books that always inevitably comes up every time you're in a Torah conversation. This is not an extensive, exhaustive commentary on every single verse of the book of Galatians, but this is the best starting point for anyone who is not familiar with Galatians from a messianic perspective. It basically goes through every verse, not every single verse. There's like maybe 2 or 3 verses left out. They're immaterial verses. This is mostly the stuff that most people have questions on. And I highly recommend this book. If you want a full Galatians commentary, Tim Hegg's full Galatians commentary is also excellent, but it's also very lengthy. So this is a great starting point for anyone who just is looking for a starting point. And all the common questions need to be answered instead of like, you know, and you're not some seminarian. So prize number 5, Galatians. Let's see. Questions. What do we got? Do we got any new questions?
Oh yeah, we got a few concerning Genesis. And here's a good one for you, actually, as the historian.
Oh, actually, this is actually, yes, a great question. So the question is, you know, I have a question. In Yeshua's day, Rome had forbidden Jews from owning swords. So when Yeshua told his disciples to take up your sword, would have been an insurrection cause for execution. Thoughts? So I don't take this the wrong way, Biddy. But I actually kind of thought that you might know this already. So maybe you're asking for the sake of the audience. But if you don't know this question already, probably because she's incredibly intellectual. And so I'm really giving her the benefit of doubt for this question. I don't think that she's legitimately asking this, but yeah, essentially anyone who did have a sword was a Zionist. The Sicarii were a Zionist movement. It's actually where Judas gets his name Iscariot. He was probably Yehuda Sicarii. Or Judas Iscariot. And Sicarii was a sect of Zionists, and the Zionists were a sort of militant, pro-state of Israel, anti-Roman militia, more or less. And Judas and one other member of his group of 12 were both identified as Zionists. But when he goes to trial, something that New Testament scholars and New Testament historians have noted is that his trial doesn't make sense in a number of ways. And the primary way is that he's charged with blasphemy when no blasphemy has occurred. And many New Testament historians, particularly Bart Ehrman, has noted this as being very weird because we know what blasphemy is. We know very specifically in the concept of the Sanhedrin, in its context and everything, is a very particular charge. And he was being charged with blasphemy without actually having committed any kind of blasphemy in any case. But what he did end up committing was treason. And the fact that they change his charges from blasphemy to treason when he's brought before Pilate is actually indicative of the fact that he was brought up under false charges so that he could be charged with treason by the Roman government, because he was seen as an insurrectionist. The reason he had to go to trial, though, was because Jesus was not overtly an insurrectionist. He kept it very hush-hush, and that's probably why he continued to tell his disciples and people that he would heal miraculously. He would always tell them things like, hey, don't tell anybody, just go to the priest, get your certification that you're clean from leprosy, but don't like go around telling people what I did. Likely because he figured that kind of attention would be seen as insurrectionist attention he didn't want. And then he would be killed for treason anyway. To have a messianic claimant during the Roman occupation is to say that you are starting an insurrection against Rome, and that's treason. And so that's why Yeshua avoided saying that he was the Messiah. He almost never said it out loud, and that's why he needed to be betrayed in the first place. The scribes and Pharisees could not charge him on anything because they didn't do anything wrong. And so they had to get Judas to betray him. How did he betray him? What exactly did Judas give to the scribes and Pharisees that they could not get themselves from Jesus? And that's likely the claim that he was saying that he's the Messiah. That was probably something he only shared with his disciples. And the scribes and Pharisees needed someone to admit that to them so that they could bring him to trial anyway in the first place. That's actually Bart Ehrman's stance on this whole thing, by the way. That's his theory, is that the reason Judas was needed was because he was not publicly claiming to be a Messiah. So they needed somebody who was from within to say that he was, or to at least admit it. And then and the rest is history from there. And then they could charge him with treason, especially since the Sadducees particularly were bought and paid for by Rome, and they were much more like, it was their job was to squelch any messianic, rebellious, treasonous activity. So yeah, that absolutely saying things like "take up your sword" to his group of disciples is basically him. It does seem like Zionist language, and that would be enough for a treasonous execution. That's what I would say. There's a lot more convolution, of course, to the whole thing, but I don't want to take up too much time. We're already an hour in, and we're only five books in.
Oh boy, this one might go long.
Last year it went for 2 hours also. So
oh, okay, yeah. So we're still within the time frame.
Yeah, it just, some of these questions get so good, you can't just give it really simple answers, especially since we demand good questions. So Biddy, thank you for the question. I'm actually glad you asked it, for those who have not heard that concept yet before. I think we've talked about it a little bit on the show, but not in great detail. That's something that we can schedule an episode for, I think, actually.
Absolutely.
So the Galatians prize will go to, another interesting result here. Josh Davis. Congratulations, Josh Davis. You are the winner of the Galatians commentary by D. Thomas Lancaster, published by First Fruits of Zion. If you're watching right now, congratulations. If not, congrats anyway. Wow, there's been a lot more questions coming up. I'm glad you were paying attention while I was talking.
Right.
Oh, Bobby, by the way, CCW means concealed carry weapon. CCP is the concealed carry permit. If you want to say CCP permit, you would say CCW permit, because CCP permit doesn't make sense because you're saying permit twice. So that's why sometimes you hear people saying, yeah, my CCW permit.
Like your car's VIN number?
VIN number, exactly. So concealed carry weapon permit, CCW permit, or just CCP. It doesn't matter. That's actually tit for tat. Bobby taught me what Awana stood for today. I didn't know. And now I taught him what CCW stands for. So congratulations once again to Josh. Now you pick the next question again, because I wasn't paying attention.
Well, okay, so I'll go with this one. This one's going to be kind of easy, theologically light, but with still somewhat of an in-depth explanation. Because chapter 3 of Genesis mentions having cattle, what are your thoughts on Adam and Eve being vegetarians before the flood? Certainly, I think that Scripture lays out that precedence, especially given that even earlier on, what Hashem says is that He has given, every seed-bearing plant for food, but He doesn't say this about animals until after the flood. Here's the interesting part about that, though. I would hold the position currently that the Bible is inherently carnivore diet supporting, contrary to many people who would say that it's inherently vegan diet supporting. And the reason is, when Hashem says that animals are for food now, the context, at least as I read it, does not seem to be inclusive to greenery. It's not saying greenery and animals are for food now. What it seems to be saying is that animals are for food now. And there's a bit of scientific research that's gone into this, and this is something that I've been looking into recently. I'll be trying this diet. I'll let you know what the results are. I've been kind of cheating a little bit this week because it's a holiday. But I will be trying the Lion's Diet. This is something that Jordan Peterson's daughter has popularized in her own research. Now, she did not set out to prove the carnivore diet. She set out to mitigate certain conditions that she has. And so, as part of her research to try and get rid of a few autoimmune problems that she had, as well as depression and severe bipolar disorder, what she ended up discovering is that an all meat diet is pretty much the only completely standalone sustainable diet that human beings can survive on with nothing else. It's funny, me and Seamus were talking about this the other day, because naturally the question that all of you are thinking right now is, where do you get your vegetables from? Or where do you get your vitamins from? What she discovered in her research is essentially that your body only needs the vast amount of vitamins that it does currently because of the high carb and sugar diets that you're currently on. Your vitamin levels tend to regulate after a period of being on a no carb all meat diet with a heavy emphasis on salt. So meat, salt, and water. That's pretty much the diet. And as it turns out, this has actually been used to treat bipolar disorder. And prior to advances in modern medicine, this is also how they would treat type 2 diabetes back in the day. You would just put somebody on an all-meat diet, and it would literally cure type 2 diabetes. So... yeah, that's something that I'll be trying out, and again, I'll let you guys know what the results are.
Yeah, because I was super skeptical, and I started looking into it. I was like, there's no way people can live like this. Jury's still out for me. I'm not gonna do that. For one, you have to cut carbs entirely. So beer, and
I know.
Listen,
that part sucks.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. It takes a commandment from God to get me to abstain from anything. Literally. I've already had to give up bacon. You cannot make me give up beer.
Well, and so that's what I'll be. My routine is probably going to be, and this will assist in my Sabbath observance, right? Is that for Shabbat, I will eat whatever it is that I want to eat. That'll be the one day of the week that I indulge. And this helps in a few capacities, is that it's a way that I'd be setting the day apart. It's also something that will keep me looking forward to Shabbat, because like French fries are like that, man, and anything potato. I love that. So it's going to be hard giving that up. But yeah, and for the trace amounts of like vitamin C and stuff like that your body actually does need on a regular basis, you can actually get that from red meat, provided that it is cooked no more than a medium. Not even medium well. You'd have cooked it too much to derive any of those vitamins from it. But as long as it's below that level, you can derive the necessary vitamins that your body needs from red meat. But it does have to be ruminant animals: lamb, elk, goat, cow.
So Biddy brings this point up because I wanted to actually clarify too. Grass-fed, free-range beef is honestly the way to go if you're going to do this diet, because you're the only way you're going to get the amount of vitamins correctly is through a more natural beef. So it's interesting that you bring this up, because what I told Brad was like, you basically could only eat kosher certified beef, because that's the only way you're going to get everything out of beef, because regular like marketplace beef is not going to have the same nutrient levels. And I think, as far as I'm aware, Jordan Peterson did this diet, and he's
been on it for like 2 years, and he's never cheated, according to his own testimony.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, he does do the free range grass fed stuff because he can afford it. And Ben Shapiro does not do this diet, but he only ever eats kosher meat when he does. It's expensive, but not impossible. But it is really expensive.
Here's a good just a quickie question. Why is your library bigger than mine? So there is an answer to this.
Brad Glover.
The short answer is, at one time in my life I had access to my dad's library, and so Seamus started purchasing books much earlier than I did.
I've been collecting since college. A lot of it is actually because of college. And then, actually you should see his dad's library. He has almost the entire Talmud Yerushalmi. And he doesn't even have bookshelf space for all of his books. Literally half of it is sitting in boxes. And so he has access to a large library. It's just not sitting behind him. Whereas I have taken my library and put most of it as a set piece. What's up, Matthew? I actually haven't seen you in a while since like TikTok. I don't know if you recognize him, Brad, but that's
I did it. I did an interview on his podcast.
Okay, yeah, that's been a minute.
Yeah, that was a minute ago. He did that one video where like it was a response to somebody saying that British accents do not equal intelligence, and so he read this piece of literature, beautiful piece of literature, like in a proper Queen's English accent, and then in like a backwoods North Cackle Smackle redneck accent, and I was like, all right, fair enough. Now do the same comparison in a Savannah Southern and a Liverpool accent and watch that same effect reverse.
So, the winner of Paul Was Not a Christian, this person might actually already have it. So if you do, and I think she's watching, so congratulations to Lowell Abeda. I believe that's how you say that. Lowell Abeda, congratulations, you're the winner of Paul Was Not a Christian. If you already own this book, let us know in the comments and we will redraw for this one. But if you don't already own this book, it's on its way to you. So congratulations, Lowell Abeda. Biddy Buddha, have a wonderful night.
We gotta have her on again. We gotta have a panel discussion and have her on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Pat. I miss Pat.
I do have it. Thank you. Okay, so you do have it, so we'll redraw this one.
I was gonna say, or alternative option, we could still send it to her if she wants to re-gift it to someone else.
Or we can redraw for this one, but she can be the winner of the next prize, so the next prize is actually a Siddur, which she might also probably already have.
Ooh, do you have a Siddur? Answer in the comments.
Do you have a prayer Siddur? Because if you do not, we can send you a prayer Siddur of your choosing from Art Scroll as a winner. And yes, Matthew, just shoot us like an email or something, and we'll set something up.
Yeah. Tell us what topic you want to discuss. So she's got somebody to re-gift it to.
Okay, all right. So we'll send you this. We'll send you Paul's Not a Christian anyway, and then you can re-gift it. Perfect. And you also, have a Siddur. So. Okay, my comment got lost. I already have the. Oh,
my wife here roasting me in the comments.
Josh, you, by the way, you did win the last book. I don't know if you saw that. You were the winner. So it looks like you did get lost in the comments. So where did it go?
That's like the most official Matt Walsh thing to happen to me tonight is my wife roasting me in the comments.
Where did his comment go? My comment got lost. I already have the Galatians. Pass it on. Okay, so we'll redraw for that one too. Okay. All right. No problem. Yeah, here's what we'll do. We'll re-roll for Galatians.
Go for it.
This is a different, very, very different number. Let's see here. Okay. All right. This guy is in the Discord under Hey Man, It's Dave. And he doesn't have his last name up here. So, David, you're the winner. So, Hey Man, It's Dave on the Discord. David.
My man, Dave. I don't think he's watching right now, but yeah.
That's really funny because Josh Davis. Instead, now it is David. And let me write down your slot number so I know to get to your email. And Lowell, we are still sending you yours and you'll regift it. So perfect. So that makes everything's good now, I think. Where is your walrus, Brad? Good question, actually.
Well, I do not have a child yet who can identify as a walrus, but rest assured, as soon as I have a child who decides to identify as a walrus, I will be sure to honor that. And Johnny the Walrus will be their favorite bedtime story.
All right, so let's see. So the next giveaway is a prayer sitter. So now we need a question for that. Is this episode sponsored by Good Ranchers? Oh man, good stuff. That's the Bellamy meme talking right there.
Yep. Oh. All right.
Yeah. So, actually, let me see here. I did see a question that I kind of wanted to touch. It's a simpler question.
Fire away.
Let me just find it again. Oh, boom. Is there a biblical basis for being a missionary, essentially as an occupation?
No.
I mean, no, but there's no prohibition on it either.
There isn't. But so this is one of the things that has to be understood, and this is why even Paul had a trade, right? Rabbis had a trade back in this day. You were never just a Torah teacher as a primary means of making making do. There was always a trade that came with it. So Hillel was a carpenter. It's another one of the commonalities that Hillel had with Yeshua is that they were carpenters. Shammai was a builder. Ramban was a physician, right? He was a doctor. Paul was a tent maker. These people had trades that they practiced, and typically trades that they could practice in travel. So no matter where they went, they could still find work, which is honestly, that's the purpose to a trade. That is something that I personally believe in. My parents didn't pressure me to go to college. That was something that certainly they were supportive of if it's something that I wanted to do with my future. But the one thing they were very, very insistent that I do is learn a trade. And the reason being is because it doesn't matter where you go, trades are valuable.
And so that's not just, you can be a missionary. You can do that. I actually do know people who are like a traveling mechanic who do exactly that. They like
right. Crazy God Story.
Crazy God Story. Exactly that. His trade is part of his ministry.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Paul basically did exactly that. He earned his keep wherever he went while also being an emissary for the message. So, but to do that as to like be paid to be a missionary, I think that would be a very different thing. That would be, as any normal Jew would basically put it this way, that would rob you or really deprive you of the ability to fulfill commandments via a trade. By being a paid missionary, you can only fulfill less commandments now. You can't fulfill more. You would be fulfilling less.
And honestly, that really is what weakens. I'm gonna use a lot of Christianese here. That's what weakens the gospel in the first place, is the dependency of a pastor on the offering plate. Right? See, the pastors who aren't afraid to teach whatever it is that they need to teach for their congregations to hear are pastors who have a job outside of being a pastor, right? Mm-hmm. Because their family is taken care of regardless. They're already making money another way to support themselves and their family. So they don't have to worry about whether or not what they're going to say is going to offend somebody in the congregation who might not give as much in the offering plate. So yeah, that's one of those things. When you become inherently dependent on the community's generosity, you are not at liberty to teach what you may need to be teaching.
Right. And we've said in the past too, when it comes to now that we're officially an organization, hopefully there are big things for us in the future. But we've been pretty clear, at least up front, we try to be anyway, that me and Brad will probably continue to work jobs, most likely full time, if not almost full time, while doing this, and use any like if it gets big enough and we can pay for people to be on a payroll, then we will give that privilege to others. And they can do work for us as like producers, editors, writers, whatever. And they're earning their keep, and we will probably continue to work a job. So that way, as sort of the owners too, like you were saying, it's kind of a conflict of interest, and we don't want that to be an issue. We want our givers to give freely, knowing exactly what we're all about, and for us to speak freely without the threat of losing our livelihood over saying the wrong thing. But yeah, so plus I like fulfilling commandments at work. I like I like trade has a connection to the divine. I love that. So I don't want to give that up. Anyway, book number 7 is, let me get back up here, a prayer siddur of your choosing. So this means it's going to be an Art Scrolls complete siddur. There are 3 options. You have the Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and the Sfard. You can choose either of the 3. They're all the same. And so you can pick which of the 3 traditions you would prefer. If you need a quick overview, Ashkenazi, European Jewry, Sephardic, Middle Eastern, generally speaking, Spanish and Middle Eastern traditions. And Sfard is Ashkenazi traditions, but with the traditions primarily from the Sephardic traditions, mixed in kind of in between the two. Many Hasidic Jews use the Sfard or the Arizal, which is so close to Sephard, it's basically the same thing as a Sephard. So if you lean Hasidic, I recommend Sephard. If you lean Sephardi, I recommend Sephardi, Edut HaMizrach. And if you lean European Jew, Ashkenazi is sort of your go-to. I own one of all 3, actually. You can see them up here. All 3 are displayed: my Ashkenazi, my Sephardi, and my Sephard. So anyway, yeah, it's time to roll the dice on that one, isn't it? Let's see here. Who's winning the number 24? Liz. That's all it says. Liz at the student level, no last name, Liz. Congratulations to Liz for winning a prayer siddur of your choosing. We will reach out to you so you can give us exactly which prayer siddur tradition you would prefer. And then we will send it out to you right away. So yeah, congratulations. All right, that's that one. The next one, since we're, a little hour over, Tree of Life version Bible. So I have an older copy here. The newer copies are actually slightly nicer. Brad, you have a newer copy. I have one of the older ones.
I do. I think it's downstairs though.
Yeah, this is my daily. This is like I don't keep it on the bookshelf because why bother? I literally have this almost everywhere I go. This is my literal daily Bible. This is a great translation. It's also accredited, highly accredited. It's not like most of the other, just about realistically speaking, almost all other messianic translations are bad. They might be decent translations, but they have problems in that it's a single person translation, so it's not really accredited or scrutinized. It's a copy of a copy of a copy translation. Or it could be as bad as the Ed Sefer, which is just a reworking of the King James and sold at an exuberantly high price to rid you of your money. A translation done by a guy this is funny. He admits he's not a scholar. And when you look up his background, he's not a scholar. He did go to college and he got his degree in marketing. So
How about that?
how about that? So
Me-
he did just enough to translation and marketed it just enough correctly that you spend over $100 on one of his garbage translations marketing.
Yeah, the app is free. There's an app for the At Sefer Bible. It's free for just the regular 66 books of the Bible. If you want the Apocrypha, you have to pay for that.
Yeah. Oh, rip the HCSB. I still love that translation. I just hate that we can't sell an HCSB because they're out of print.
Facts.
Yeah, so let's see. Actually, so and Brad is currently wearing a kippah, as am I.
So technically I am Matt Walsh Shapiro tonight.
And this actually brings us to the question I wanted to talk about.
About head covering. A man taking on the place of head covering over another man's wife. Is there any biblical basis?
Yeah, so this is interesting because it feels like, are you talking about a married man being
acting as a covering over another man's wife?
No, there's no biblical basis for that at all.
Yeah, no. So I think I understand the basis of this question, and it's because of a Christian extrapolation from a particular verse. Now, the extrapolation doesn't work within the translation, but as far as the philosophy and what is derived from it, the lifestyle application is still valid, inherent, and implicit in what the text says. So there's the idea, right, that because it says that wives obey your husbands and you know that women are not to speak from under their covering while in the assembly and stuff like that, Christianity extrapolates this to women must be subservient to men in general, right? And that's not an adequate extrapolation from the text. You can't use that from the text, at least not directly. However, if you understand what it means to be a wife and to be a subservient, obedient wife, then the philosophy actually still follows, right? You're not in a position to challenge another man, right? That's something for you to take to your husband for him to challenge that man.
Okay, so we've gotten some clarity. Like new women coming in, I see Hebrew roots guys telling women they need to listen to them as they are unlearned.
Okay.
Spiritual mentors. So when you say head covering, that is a marriage thing.
Right.
And so understand from literally our Jewish perspective, we were sitting there thinking like, no, you can't, that's marrying another dude's wife.
Yeah, no,
this is different. So somebody being a spiritual mentor is completely different, especially in the case of, where the guy doesn't know. He's equally as ignorant as his wife would be in these matters. And this is actually the role of the Rebbitzin in a Jewish community. Because it's not proper, even if no matter what the context is in Orthodoxy, it's not proper for a one-on-one with another man's wife, no matter what. Oh man, there's a Hebrew word for it. It's escaping right now. It's not yachid, yachad. It's something like that, but it's a law though. But the idea is the rabbi should be a married man who has a very, she doesn't have to be a trained rabbi herself, but the fact that she's married to a rabbi usually means that she's very well versed in much of the halachic things, in a similar way as her husband is going to be, just by nature of the fact that she's literally married to a rabbi, right? That stuff's going to rub off. And the Rebbitzin is also going to be the one who's going to actually know some of the best stuff when it comes to female interactions with Torah law, like mikvah, nida, and stuff like that. things that a man rabbi cannot answer because he has no experience in that area. Yichud. Yep, that's okay. That's the word. Yichud. I knew it was like Yachad, Yachid. I knew it was one of those Yachad roots. Yichud. Yeah. So a Rebbitzin should be doing that job. If it's a last ditch, there's no other option. The husband has to be 100% present during any and all, learning sessions between whoever the lead guy is going to be. And if there's no Rebbitzin-like figure, then the husband should be 100% present during that as well. In that way, it's a teamwork that both are going through it at the same time, and that's good. That's perfectly normal. But ideally you would have a Rebbitzin so that all the private matters can be discussed, comfortably. So
it's actually an interesting question as a spinoff from that. Egalitarianism versus complementarianism in Judaism outside of Christianity. Is it a thing? That's interesting. You asked that question. If you go and observe a Jewish community, what you're going to find is that they are more inherently complementarian than Christianity is. Even the most complementarian Christian church that you can imagine is still not as complementarian as a Jewish community would be. However, in philosophical discussion, the Jewish community will probably appear more egalitarian.
Yeah, that's actually a fair thing to say. The thing is, women have a large role. Like I've talked about this in the past. Our community koshering guardian. So she actually has two jobs. So we have a community. It's called a mashgiach, or in her case, because she's feminine, a mashgicha. And she's literally the authority on kosher when it comes to kosher kitchens and stuff. So if a Jewish new couple move into a home in the community, they would go to her and she would sign off. She would inspect and sign off on the kitchen being kosher. And then they would put the name of the couple, once they pass all the tests and the inspections, would go in the directory at the synagogue, and people would know at the synagogue, hey, we can go to their house and eat because they've been certified kosher. Right. Our mashgicha gave the thumbs up. They are a good family to eat at. We don't have to worry about anything with them because they passed.
In fact, and Seamus, you can expound more on this, but the entire concept of Shalom Bayis is predicated on a complementarian model.
It in some ways gives women more power than they should have. In that, Shalom Bayit means peace in the home. And for those that aren't aware, it basically means that because the man, more often than not, it is not the one who runs the house, because he's usually out working, making a living. He's usually actually not home most of the time. So the one who makes the home, doing the laundry, the dishes, taking care of the kids, she's the homemaker. So that's usually the wife, especially in Orthodox communities. So when it comes to matters of the house, the husband doesn't have a lot of say. And in fact, it goes so far as to say even this. And I've been told this by an Orthodox Jew. So, this has been given a hechsher, what I'm about to say. It's as wild as it sounds. But if the woman of the house does not want to keep a certain aspect of kosher, you as the man cannot, you actually don't have room to protest. You actually kind of go with it. So, you might not get signed off by the mashgicha to have a kosher home, and people won't be able to eat at your house from the synagogue. But if you come home one day and the wife is like, I'm making cheeseburgers, and you live in an Orthodox community and cheeseburgers are totally forbidden, you can basically say, you can't do that. And she can go, I don't care what you think. I run this house. I run the kitchen. I'm making cheeseburgers. And you just have to deal with it. For Shalom Bayit, for the peace in the home, you can fight all you want, but that's not Shalom Bayit. You would actually have to give up, some ground, even in the ways of kosher, for the sake of peace. There's a very, very strong saying I once heard from an Orthodox Jew. who was studying Talmud. He said, peace is so important that even Hashem steps aside for it. And so, it's an interesting concept, but yeah, it's the kind of concept that even Christians would be like, okay, that's too far in some aspects and areas. And then from the same mouth in the same breath, they'll say that Judaism is a patriarchy. It's like, I don't think you understand Judaism even a little bit.
and it's an interesting balance because of the way that Judaism works. See, that model wouldn't work in Christianity specifically because of how Christianity is set up, right? So that is the case within Judaism, but what Jewish wife wants to be the community outcast? Right? What Jewish wife wants to be the one home in the community that can't have guests because they're not kosher compliant? Right? There is an impetus for a woman to be honoring to her husband within the community because that reputation is going to stick.
Honestly, the women making the home, because a man's reputation in the community depends entirely upon the woman. That's how much power she has. Read the Proverbs 31, excuse me. The woman of valor, that portion in which her husband is seated amongst the elders at the gates. That is because she runs a tight ship. And it's because of her righteousness that her husband gets to seat with the elders at the gates, not the other way around. If that home isn't a tight ship, then it doesn't matter how righteous the husband is, he does not get that seat. And so it is actually on the merit of his wife that he sits in that position. It's like the merit of the fathers. And so it's a big thing. It really is a big deal. And so it's very maternal. Judaism is in a largely uncomfortable way to a lot of Westerners. But great question. So the winner of prize number 8, the Tree of Life Bible, believe it or not, there's no last name. I just know it's Bradley. So congratulations, Bradley. Not you, Bradley. Obviously a different Bradley, but I didn't get a last name. I think it's Hewitt, Bradley Hewitt, based off of the email. And I'm trying not to give away any details for the email, but I think it's Bradley Hewitt. So congratulations to Bradley Hewitt. And he has been actually a fairly long time supporter. And so once again, thank you for your support. All right. So congrats. Bible is on the way to you. Prize number 9, The Exodus You Almost Passed Over book by Rabbi David Foreman.
Beautiful book. Beautiful lesson.
That is easily, when it comes to books about the Exodus, that's the new number 1.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So, all right, let's see. There was a question actually I kind of saw. So this is not the question for the prize. I just wanted to say, because we've already sort of answered this before, but I just wanted to give some clarity to this question. Why would Yeshua keep his messiahship so hush-hush? Just to his 12 is so important. Because he didn't want to die early. His time had not yet come. And he says that over and over and over again. That's literally the reason. It's hey, my time is not yet, so keep it down. And then when the time is right, you'll know. But right now is not the time, so don't talk about it too much. So that's why. Let's see. Oh, tithes. Literally tithes? That's the question. Tithes?
Ah, yes. I think this was asked above with a little more detail. Should we be giving tithes, right? And if so, who to and where?
Yep. As Torah pursuant believers, do we need to tithe, and to whom or what should be done? Yep, that's the full one.
Now the tithe itself was for the temple, right? So that's going to be a no. But
so there's a difference between tithe and charity,
right?
So the tithe is specific, and there's actually two different types of tithes. One is primarily for the temple, so that the priesthood can operate, because they don't have any lands, they don't have properties, they don't have trades. Their trade is we service the temple, and that is if you've read the book of Leviticus, it is a lifelong. That is a trade in and of itself. The only downside is that's a trade that it's not a very lucrative trade. And so it is specifically to support the temple system. And the reason that's important is because the priests operate on your behalf. You are not able to be a priest. And so your contribution to the priesthood is them doing that on your behalf. They stand in your place as your agent at the temple to do the things that you can't do. Such as, we actually talked about this in our Waypoint podcast. It is incumbent upon every Jew to light the menorah. It says that in the Bible. It says that in the Torah. Every Jew has the commandment to light the menorah. The problem is the menorah is located in the holy place, so only the priests can light it. But the commandment says every Jew shall light the menorah. So how do you contribute? One way is monetary giving. The other way is actually donating oil for the menorah to the temple, so that way you're part of the process for the menorah. So that it's very much a. Now, when we talk about charity, that's seen as a mitzvah, and it's a good thing. But there's it's different from the tithe. So charity is and even then there's actually, if you read in the Shulchan Aruch, I have up here, right here behind me, there are laws about giving to charity, how much to give so that you don't find yourself in need of charity.
Right.
And how all that stuff works. These are all really good things to do. You should do them. It's not like you have to do them, but it shouldn't be viewed that way. It's more like you get to do them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And as far as who to, I mean, wherever you see a need, but certainly, what you guys donate to us, that's charity. That's tzedakah. That's you guys are doing that. That's one. You can support Chabad. That's another one. And even FFOZ. So that's one that especially if you want to collect the Torah clubs, there's a very beneficial, you could say, payoff on that, in that now you're essentially buying them twice, 3 times, twice. Yeah, you're buying the Torah club twice throughout the duration of a year, but you get a whole Torah club up front, and then you pay your monthly donation throughout the year. So it's a decent way to collect all of the Torah clubs if that's something that you're trying to do. But yeah, I mean, any number of charities.
And then there's the Sukkot tithe, where you put away a tenth in preparation for Sukkot. But the thing is, that tithe you actually do end up spending on yourself.
Yes, for throwing a party.
Yeah, the idea is you save up a tenth of your net. I think it's gross, actually. Your net income. So 10% left over after all your bills are paid. After everything is done, you take 10% of what's left and you put that aside for Sukkot over the year. So not 10% of your whole paycheck, just 10% of what you have left. So even if that's 10 cents at the end of every check or whatever, it's not 10% of the whole check. It's 10% of what's left after you've taken care of yourself.
I'm glad you specified that. That's an important thing, because what most churches will teach is and kind of what I grew up learning is that 10% is 10% of what you made. So 10% of before taxes.
Yeah, it's 10% gross. Yeah.
Right. 10% of your gross. And it's like, well, that ends up being a substantial portion of your check, like at the end of the day. And that, I mean, that at times, for me, when that was something that I was practicing, that made living difficult, because I could have used that extra. But in any case, yeah, it's fascinating to find out that that's a manipulation that Christianity has used, because Yeah, no. The 10% is supposed to be what you have left after what it takes for you to live. Because
Yep.
you cannot pay a tithe if you're not living. So what it takes for you to live is separate. That's something else entirely.
Yeah, it's based on the way it's worded. It's 10% of your earnings, and so once you've paid, the earnings are everything left over.
Yeah, what it takes for you to live, that's you broke even.
Yeah,
Earnings are what you make on top of what it takes for you to live.
right. And poverty is breaking even with nothing left over, technically speaking.
Right.
At least in a biblical sense. But yeah, so 10% of your net, set that aside, save up for a massive Sukkot party, and invite as many people as you can afford to have. And anything left over from your party, like I tend to use most of my Sukkot tithes for books, actually. And you're allowed to do this. The Shulchan Aruch even goes into, if you spend that tithe on holy items, you can do that. There's some stipulations, like it's got to be items you don't already have or you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. Or in the case of books, you have to be willing to lend them out to people. And you have to mark it specifically in the book that you bought this with tithe money. And that's different from a book that you bought with your earnings. So you mark them differently to show that this book is actually holy property versus a book that I bought because I wanted it and I bought it with my own earnings. So there's stuff like that. You can read it in the Shulchan Aruch, but good question. Very good point of clarity. Let's roll the dice. So the book we are giving away is The Exodus You Almost Passed Over. And the winner, let's see if that's a valid... Alex Campbell. Alex Campbell. All right. Congratulations to Alex Campbell. You are the winner of The Exodus You Almost Passed Over. Not in the Discord, but definitely one of our supporters for a while now, actually. So congratulations to Alex Campbell. You are the winner of a wonderful book.
Awesome. You're going to love the book. It's one of the best. And for those of you who are already another charity that you can give to, Aleph Beta, would highly recommend giving to Aleph Beta. Because it's such a fantastic resource, and this is one of the best lessons that's on there.
Joshua asked us a question a long time ago. I wonder if he still has this question. I did star it. I didn't forget it. So prize number 10, The Everlasting Jew. This is a book about Isaac Lichtenstein. He is a Orthodox Jew in the very late 19th century. He dies in the very, very early 20th century in Hungary. He was a community rav. He was a head rabbi of a Jewish community, of an Orthodox Jewish community in Hungary in the late 1800s. And he was a believer in Yeshua. He believed that Yeshua was Messiah. And he wrote some letters, and he had a lot to say. In fact, one of his best writings is about how he finds that the Talmud is 100% easily compatible with the New Testament texts. And so he came out as a believer in Yeshua as the Messiah, and he continued to be the head Rav of his community for another 10 or 11 years after that. Because his community loved him. He never pressured anyone to convert. He felt that conversion for Jews was not necessary. He felt that Yeshua taught that Jews should be, if anything, more Jewish and more inspired to keep like Talmudic Judaism. And he was so good at his job. He never gave up Judaism even a little bit. And so they couldn't fire him. They couldn't get rid of him. The community loved him, and he was a highly respected Rav. And other rabbis would continue to see him and come to him for halachic advice. And he worked closely with some other high names in the Jewish Messianic world of that time. Rabbi Isaac Lichtenstein. The Everlasting Jew is a collection of his letters and writings, published by First Fruits of Zion. translated from their original Hebrew forms. Very, very good book. I actually recently finished this book. Super, super good. A lot of good stuff in there about Talmud. And even what's more, a lot of good stuff that's actually kind of geared towards Jews, talking to them a little bit, but very, very good. So we need a good question for this one, because we got this question and one more, and then we're done.
All right.
So this is one I don't know if we want to use this one, but he did ask this a while ago, and I kind of wanted to address it since it's here. I always forget to ask this question, but why does there seem to be a progressive understanding of Satan in the New Testament compared to Tanakh? For example, Luke 10:18 or Luke 22:3.
I will answer with a very simple answer. Perspective. The Tanakh tends to speak about Satan from the perspective of heaven itself, right? Satan is being described as he relates to the person of Hashem, right? As he relates to God and the grander scale of things. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the New Testament, the person of Satan is discussed primarily respective to the human perspective.
Right.
And those are not necessarily the same thing.
In fact, there are Talmudic texts that speak a little bit like the New Testament speaks of Hasatan. And so it is purely, it's the perspective of Satan you see in the New Testament is not from the Tanakh, strictly speaking. It's actually mostly from Talmud and Mishnah. It's indicative of a prior understanding, because Tanakh doesn't tell you really anything about Satan. It's largely silent about him. I don't even think he's mentioned once in the Torah. He's mentioned sparingly in the rest of the Tanakh, if at all.
He is mentioned once in the Torah.
In the Torah, but yeah. Okay, yeah. Thinking like Exodus.
Yep. Because the angel stood Lasatan to Bilam.
Yeah. So he's very, very seldom mentioned. And so it's, when you see it in the New Testament, what you're actually seeing is a development of the philosophy of the Satan that you kind of find really in the extra biblical texts, such as the Talmud.
It's an interesting thing also because, even outside of Job, the perspective of Satan that you get from the Torah and even other rabbinic literatures expound on this further is not necessarily a personhood of Satan, right? There is an understanding that there is an angel who acts on that behalf, but Satan as an adversary is viewed more as a principality or a force than it is a personhood. Which is that'll go into, so I'll say we'll call this a two-parter because he continued to ask. And I guess if the serpent in the garden wasn't Satan, could Satan have entered into it like he did Judas? Now, again, I think that's a rather literal rendering of the words that we read in English in Luke pertaining to Judas, whereas I think you could certainly say that would be applicable to Chava or Eve in the garden. But as far as Satan having entered into the serpent, there is no textual basis for that outside of Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer.
Understand the serpent is in a lot of Judaism. Actually, the serpent is allegorical of the Yetzer Hara.
So, and that's the thing to understand. And this is how complex the subject of Satan is. So like we coming out of Christianity are so used to viewing Satan as a personhood, right? So when you study more into Judaism and recognize that there's actually more of an understanding of Satan as a principality, right? Or as a force in and of itself, that makes more sense with the idea that there are three things that are synonymous with each other: the serpent, the Yetzer Hara, and Hasatan, right? These are all three synonymous with one another. So Was it the Yetzer Hara that was tempting Eve, or was it Hasatan? Well, the answer is yes, right?
Yeah.
And so then, was it the serpent who was tempting Eve, or the Yetzer Hara? Well, the answer is yes.
You'll find often that Yetzer Hara and Hasatan can sometimes be in rabbinic literature interchangeable.
Right.
And I've even actually heard in conversation, if you talk to some Israelis, they'll say something like, I've seen this on an Israeli TV show, and I'm watching the subtitles, and they're talking about the Yetzer Hara, but they've translated at the bottom as Satan. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm glad I know enough Hebrew to recognize that translation is not entirely accurate. They're attributing in English to Satan what that guy is actually saying is he's feeling tempted right now. But the translation basically says Satan is making me do it, or this, like, cell phones are of Satan. Whereas what the guy said was cell phones open the Yetzer Hara, as in they let in a temptation. So
one of the ways I guess part of learning to think a new way is, first of all, learning that you think a certain way and learning how to identify the way that you think, right? So a lot of people it's easy for them to get on board with the idea that the word Satan, right, means adversary. It's easy for them to get on board with that, but again, the mindset is where there's a difference here. They think adversary is in, like, bad guy, right? Because Hashem is good guy, and so Satan is bad guy. So we're still thinking about personhoods. Whereas there's a difference between that as when we're talking about Satan as adversary to Hashem's will. Or what is correct, what is right, right? To be an adversary to what is right is not a personhood. That's whatever force is against the force of good is the force of evil, which is adversarial, right? So it doesn't have to take on a personhood for the word Satan to still apply, and that's where I think a lot of people get lost is learning to think outside of the box of personhood when it comes to these titles, right? So, yeah.
All right, so Everlasting Jew goes to, Aaron Williford.
Aaron!
Gnome Aaron. I hope you don't already own this book. If you do, leave it in the comments, but Aaron, Aaron, you are the winner of Everlasting Jew. Congratulations. Unless that is you already have it, in which case we'll redraw. But so there's this question here by this guy. Paride Scordo, I think is that. I'm not sure how you say it, but here's this question. I don't know if we're gonna make this the grand prize question because we have talked about this in the past, but he has been waiting patiently actually since the beginning of the show, so he definitely deserves. So
the question is a false dichotomy.
So first of all, he gives us a blessing, shalom uvracha, peace and blessing. So thank you. And he uses Yeshu, so I think he's also of the Orthodox Jewish variety, I imagine. And this is actually funny enough. Yeshu is probably how it was spoken in the Galilean dialect, which is where he was from. Funny enough, Galileans were famous for not being able to pronounce the ayin. There's actually a funny story in the Talmud about that, about how you could tell someone was from Galilee. It's kind of a joke, but so was Yeshua born by a virgin or by a young lady? And so depends on who you ask. But the answer is definitely a young lady. It's whether or not she was a virgin, I guess.
Again, I'll say. And I don't mean this in any kind of an offensive way, but this is just the technical term for the way that the question has been phrased, is that there are, and this takes place multiple times in this question, is what we call a false dichotomy. as though these two options are first and foremost mutually exclusive from one another, and secondly that these are the only two options. And so in this case, the third option is in and of itself the fact that these are not mutually exclusive concepts to one another. So, a virgin or a young lady, well, those are not mutually exclusive concepts. Most virgins, I dare say, would be young women.
we're sort of, I think we know the point of the question, and we're kind of picking at hairs here. And that's why I said at the beginning, it kind of depends on who you ask. We're not like trying to hide the ball on this one here, but there's a lot of scholastic debate on the origin of this entirely. There seems to be a lot of evidence that this is not originally something that was in much of the New Testament, as far as we're aware, until post 70 CE destruction of the temple. So that, and like another example is Paul seems to be completely unaware of the concept.
No idea, no clue.
And he is the earliest writings of any Christianity writings that we have, and we have other evidence too that Matthew didn't originally have a virgin birth narrative, because the Ebionites only used the Gospel of Matthew, and they did not believe in a virgin birth, which illustrates that their version of the Gospel of Matthew did not have a virgin birth. So it's kind of a convoluted question. It kind of depends on who you ask.
I was going to say, yeah, John and Peter also seem to have had no clue about this, or they didn't think it was relevant enough to put in their own Gospels, which is, again, interesting on its own, because you would figure if there was anybody who knew about this, who wrote any part of the New Testament, it would be those most intimately close to Yeshua, which would be Peter and John, right? Those would have been the closest authors of the New Testament to Yeshua, outside of James, his brother, right?
So
none of them seem to be aware of it.
And then when it comes to the second part of the question, was then born of Joseph's seed or divine seed? I believe
these are mutually exclusive.
And I think I speak on behalf of the both of us when I say we both think that it's Joseph's seed. Yes. Whether or not Joseph had any part in that, whether he was a voluntary active member or an involuntary provider of the seed, we absolutely affirm that Joseph was his biological father.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, that's a piece not everyone is fully familiar with that concept, but I hope that answers your question at least enough to. That's not going to be our giveaway prize question. I kind of want something else to be, because we've basically done original sin. We've done a whole episode on original sin. We've literally have a whole episode.
Right. But the question still warrants answering, right? I figure we can hold out the tension on the grand prize here.
Okay.
The question still warrants answering, right? So are humans born evil, right? And the concept of original sin. So the presence of the Yetzer Hara does not make this inherently so, right? Because there's also the Yetzer HaTov. There's the Nefesh, the animal soul, and the Neshama, the divine soul, right? These are what we gather from Genesis is that these are both part of what is bound up in humanity. So I wouldn't say necessarily that humans are born evil, but humans are born human, and they wouldn't be human without both aspects.
Mm-hmm. And depending on how your life goes will determine which one has more power over your body. But yeah, original sin, that's Augustinian theology. That's 5th century and above Catholic invention. It is not a concept within Judaism, and even Baptists don't like the idea of it.
Yep. It's another thing that Will Hess from the Church Split has a few good portions on there.
Yes, he does. So original sin, garbage theology. So, yes, to Paride. I think it's Paride because Paride. Paride. You're very welcome. Thank you for the question. A very interesting question. So, the grand prize giveaway, just as a reminder, you will win one copy of all of the books that we have already given away tonight, as well as the 6-volume set of Chronicles of the Messiah, which is the 4th set in the First Fruits of Zion Torah Club commentaries. Absolutely love this set. Very, very good. It's a great place for gospel commentary, particularly from a messianic perspective, from a Jewish perspective. Very, very good. Not my favorite volume, in that the old volume 4, when it was still in binders, I think was set up better.
Yes.
But that also could just be, and I say this, I'm trying to be as indifferent about it as possible. I think that's also because that's the first volume that we went through, and so it makes the most sense to us. This new one, they sort of go through the Gospels more chronologically, so you kind of jump around a little bit. You start in John, and then you go to like Matthew, and then you go to Luke. The old volume went straight through Matthew, straight through Mark, straight through Luke, John, and then a little bit of Acts. And this new one cuts Acts out entirely, and it goes through the Gospels more chronologically. So you jump around a lot, and I don't like that. That's me personally, but it's still a great resource. You're still going to get all the same information. It's just in a different order. Fantastic. Easily use this for a study group. So that's the grand prize giveaway. That's what we're giving away next. Oh, Mackenzie. I'm about to make you not a Trinitarian. If you were a Trinitarian before, understand that part of being completely and fully human is having a Yetzer Hara, and God does not have a Yetzer Hara, which means if Yeshua is God, he cannot have a Yetzer Hara, which automatically makes him not fully human, and that's a problem.
Yep.
And so, yeah, welcome to doceticism. If you are if you're still Trinitarian, you're docetic now. If you're no longer Trinitarian, welcome to the Unitarian side. Jesus was a great human. Yeah, so I think we're ready to give this away. Are we ready to give this away?
Yeah.
We're at the 2-hour mark, so we got to do something. All right, and the winner. Oh man. And the winner of the grand prize giveaway, he actually recently won something in the monthly book giveaway, if I remember correctly. Nathan Hamilton.
Awesome.
Nathan Hamilton.
Congrats, Nathan. You won a lot of books.
Nathan, you just won easily $400 worth of books in our bookshelf starter pack. Let me see here. Let me get.
I love this tradition.
Sorry?
I said I love this tradition.
Yeah, and it's tradition during Purim to give gifts. Like, this is the gift giving holiday.
Right.
And so that's why we do this on Purim. Usually you also give away like 2 food items, but we can't do that. But
right.
Congratulations to Nathan Hamilton. You have won, let's see, 17 books. So congratulations. And that wraps up the show for us. We're at 2 hours.
Real quick, because
overtime.
The question has been asked multiple times, and since we are at the end, I'll entertain it, and I'll get into character one last time here. But I don't think that pandas should exist. I think that this is the worst form of socialism that exists in nature. The fact that it takes an active intervention on humankind for pandas to exist, because sure, there's preservation when it comes to other protected species and whatnot, but those species can actually survive on their own. They hunt for themselves and whatnot. It just takes an active effort on the part of human beings not to hunt those animals. However, for pandas, this is not the case. For pandas, they would not survive on their own if humans didn't protect them from other animals. They would cease to exist. They're useless. They should not exist.
Finally answering. Everyone's so happy of the panda thing. That's a good way to end the show, I think.
I figured I would save that one for the end. After like the fourth or fifth time it got asked, it was like, all right, I'll do this at the end.
Oh man, that was good. That was good. Okay, everybody. I think that's it for tonight. I am going to spend a little time in the after parties, although not as much time as before, because we are well into the night on a Wednesday night.
Yep.
But we are still going to do the after parties. So if you are a supporter, we will see you in the after parties. If you want to be a supporter, all the links are in the description down below. If you want to support the ministry. And once again, we are now officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So all donations are tax deductible starting at the beginning of this year. And so once again, we thank you very much for your generous donations to help us grow the ministry. The goal next is for an online academy. And then after that, a brick and mortar academy. And more to come. But once again, thank you very much to all of our Patreon supporters at any and all levels. And as a special thanks, you get to hang out with us post-show in the after parties.
Yep. Yeah. Again, we do this every year. So, that one of the privileges, now we don't mention this every episode, right? We always mention the after parties as one of the privileges of being a paying member is you get access to the after parties.
Oh, that's right.
But
the giveaways.
This in and of itself is one of the privileges is that we do this every year for Purim. This is going to be an established alternate media tradition. And we also have monthly giveaways. Every month we give away one book, right? And this month is Paul Was Not a Christian. And that will be, I think, next month's book club book, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So there are a lot of good benefits that come with being an actual paying member, as also access to certain exclusive content on the website. So it's definitely something you should consider, or don't. You're going to do what you want to do with your life.
Anyway, I think that's a good spot to wrap this up. Everybody, thanks for tuning in for the giveaway. For those of you who will see us in the after parties in the Discord, even if you're not in the after parties, by the way, join the Discord anyway. We're in there all the time.
Yes.
But I think that's it. I'm really bad at outros. So
yep. We hope this has blessed you. We hope that this has enlightened you. We hope that this has in some way given you something to chew on. For the rest of you, we will see you in the after parties. Godspeed.
L'chaim.